I write to remember, or rather confess. Either way, it feels strange, since so much of my life I have only hoped to forget. I suppose I always felt he would come for me earlier, before the coldness of old age had put its hooks in me. Yet, here I sit today, old, sick, and tired of waiting. The deterioration of my body has happened at a slow, nearly unperceivable rate. My mind, however, has declined much more rapidly. Most days I am still myself. Others, I am totally gone. It's gotten so bad that I have forgotten my own daughter's name on multiple occasions. However, today I feel sharp, and so I write. It was an abnormally hot October day, and the sight of the rising sun above the tree lines filled me with dread. I had hoped to reach my destination prior to its arrival, but I had severely underestimated how taxing my journey would be. With each passing step, my heavy legs burned, my breath was labored, and the sweat had already soaked through my dress. My dearly beloved, who I dragged lifelessly behind me, had seemed to snag his long limbs on every passing tree trunk, root, or rock. His slender 6-foot frame seeming to give me even more grief from beyond the grave than he had while alive. I dropped his ankles with a dull thud and swiped sweat from my brow. Squinting through the thick trees, I could finally see my destination. A winding stream divided the holler, and in a small clearing near its bank, a glorious red maple stood alone, its fiery leaves gently swaying in the breeze. Much of my childhood was spent dancing around this particular tree. Its bright leaves remained year-round, even as winter left the surrounding trees bare. Nothing else grew near it, not even a weed. The maple always stood by itself. I no longer lived near my beloved maple. Nobody did anymore, and nobody does today. I dropped my late love's legs one final time at the foot of its trunk and collapsed in exhaustion. I felt as though I didn't have the strength to stand, but my day had only just begun. I knew I must dig. I dragged myself to my feet and labored towards the stream to retrieve the pickaxe and shovel I had stashed along its bank, but not before I submerged myself in its cool, crystal-clear waters. I emerged reinvigorated and took to the ground with the pickaxe in a frenzied anger. I pictured my darling's drunk sleeping body with each violent swing. If only the ground provided the same lack of resistance his torso had to my knife, which, aside from the occasional chipping of a large bone, had carved through him with surprising ease. The ground, however, stood firm. The mid-morning sun had already taken all the strength I had left, and I was barely a foot deep into the rocky soil. I again collapsed to my knees and wept. Strangely enough, I prayed in that moment. I had never prayed before that day. I haven't missed a day since. Please, I pleaded through tears, my eyes fixed upwards towards the scarlet foliage that attempted to protect me from the sun's scorching rays. I felt a sudden cold then. It always gets cold when he is close, but I did not know that then. I turned around, raising to my feet, and laid my eyes on him for the first time. His tall, slender frame and long black cloak stood out against the green foliage. His impossibly wide, sinister smile curled upwards, contrasted by his handsome, almost boyish features and piercing sky-blue eyes. He always smiled, but I didn't know that then. My eyes lowered, following his endless black cloak down towards two bare, pale white feet protruding downward. Never in 50 years have I seen those feet touch ground.
Sarah Jane,
he said warmly, as he ever so subtly began to float towards me.
you look like you could use a friend.
I felt frozen, but managed to sheepishly ask him who he was. He briefly paused and said simply,
Yours. You know, I would never leave you, Sarah.
He continued.
I would never get drunk and hurt you.
He motioned towards the fly-ridden corpse to my left. I closed my eyes, flooded with traumatic memories of the beatings I endured at his hand. But that's all over now, I thought to myself.
It is indeed.
I jumped. He was now directly in front of me, seeming to cover a distance of nearly 50 yards in the blink of an eye. He was close enough to touch, and he did outstretch his pale, bony hand towards me. I hesitated, and then took his hand in mine. After all, what choice did I have? When I awoke, it was a clear and quiet night. My eyes barely needed time to adjust as the moonlight brilliantly illuminated my surroundings. My dearest maple, a shovel and a pickaxe leaned against its trunk, and below, a smoothly padded layer of dirt where there was once a deep hole. My deceased partner was nowhere to be seen. I quickly arranged some leaves and sticks atop the dig site to hide the disturbed soil, and then set out, shovel and pickaxe in hand. Had it been a hallucination? Had the heat gotten to me? I assured myself it had, and that I alone buried him in some sort of daze. I believed it too, for a while. It started with visits in my dreams, his wicked smiles startling me awake. He is always with me in my sleep, but he is with me always, I suppose. He is the shadow in the corner of my room. He is the face in the crowd, the whisper in the wind. I always feel I am being watched, even when I am alone. At first, he was always far away, but as I grow old and sick, he gets closer. The wrinkles at the corners of his smile are all too visible. I know I don't have much time left before he again reaches out his hand towards me, and I will take it again because, after all, what choice do I have?
I'll never leave you, Sarah Jane.